Let's play a little bit of Skip and Shannon and get a little messy today, Nate. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Like we had our first Skip and Shannon. He thought Eli Manning was the career he wanted to take because he beat the GOAT twice. But I said Aaron Rodgers because he's won all them MVPs. But now you get into the conversation of we're not talking about careers. We're talking about greatness. And it is widely known that Joe Montana is the greater quarterback. He's the one that defined greatness in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Arguably the first GOAT in the NFL. He was dubbed the first greatest of all time, arguably. Now you have old heads like my dad in the chat who grew up watching him, and there's an eye test, right? You get saying, okay, well, Joe Montana just looked like that guy. He looked like it. But a lot of people, when Joe Montana stepped off them 49ers field and went to a Chiefs uniform, they forgot to look at who stepped up after him. And I'm going to tell you his name, Nate. His name's Steve Young. So, I have pulled some career numbers from the two. We're going to take a look at them, see what we think, and, just discuss it a little bit before I drop the big numbers on you, Nate. So here's our first thing we're going to look at. Hold on, let me remove this banner. So you got the games played. You got your QB record for sure. Completion percentage, passing yards, passing touchdowns, interceptions. So, Nate, I think it's pretty clear who's who. Kind of talk to me about what you're seeing in front of you. And we'll go from there.
Well, the quarterback to the right is Joe Montana.
Okay.
192 games, 117 wins, and 47 losses. He's thrown more yards, but Steve Young has more yards per attempt. He averages more yards per passing per game, and he's thrown 41 more touchdowns. But you do know this, that bottom part right there, Steve Young was good with his legs.
And he's got a better rating than Montana.
That was the thing right there. That was the thing right there. Steve Young was athletic. Couldn't take that from him. And, him running the ball, that was a weapon. That deemed him a weapon, a threat. So these numbers are good.
And I'm glad my dad brought this up. Because not right now, but in just a little bit, we can be talking about that guy that he mentioned at the end of that sentence right there. But for now, let's talk about what they did while they were playing, either together or what they did before one of them got there. So let's talk Montana first. 2 times Montana was the passing touchdown leader in the NFL. That's the 82 season, the 87 season. 2 times Montana was the passing rating leader in 87 and 89. And 5 times he was the completion percentage leader in the NFL. So keep those numbers in mind. Twice he led the league in passing touchdowns. Twice he led the league in passer rating. And 5 times he led the league in passing completion. So let's go to Steve Young. How do Steve Young's numbers compare to that while they played together? I do want to note, Joe Montana won the Burt Bell Award once, which is given to the best player in football for the 1989 season. Now let's go to Steve Young. 4 times Steve Young has led the league in passing touchdowns. 6 times Steve Young has led the league in passer rating. And 5 times, tied with Joe Montana, he has led the league in completion percentage, and he has won the Burt Bell Award 2 times. Now, you take that into consideration. He's won the best player in football twice. Joe Montana's only won it once. Now, this award has been since like 1959 or 69, one of those years. So every year of both of these guys' career, the Burt Bell Award has been in play. Joe Montana, all them good years we talk about, he's only won it once. Steve Young has won it twice. So I give you these numbers, Nate, to tell you their time with the 49ers. Now, I'm going to ask you this again. Who do you think's better?
All I got to say is 4-0 in the Super Bowl.
That's true, too. That's true, too.
Redefine the game and that period where it was really the Cowboys and the 49ers who were going to multiple Super Bowls winning. These were arguably the two best teams, and 4-0 in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, we could say that. Yeah, that's the regular season doesn't matter, just the Super Bowl. So
the playoffs.
That means Nick Foles is the greatest quarterback ever because he's got a Super Bowl over Tom Brady.
Well, no, we can't say that because we just can't say that. I know. For that, Joe had all of the records that Tom had to beat and break.
Actually,
big game.
Drew Brees had the records that Tom Brady had to beat and break.
The Super Bowl records?
Not the Super Bowl records, but the rest of the records we talk about. Super Bowl records,
that's the one thing but that's the one thing we played the game for. To play the game to win the big one. And yeah.
So if we are only judging players by what they do at the end of the season, then can we say players like Calvin Johnson are worse than wide receivers with a ring?
Ooh, that's
because Calvin Johnson never won a ring.
Never won a ring, and you know what?
Nope.
I can't argue that. Calvin never won a ring. But what Calvin did in the game was just something out this world.
So was Steve Young. What Steve Young did for the game was something out this world. What Joe Montana did for the game was something out this world. So we can't just really say that because they have the Super Bowls, they're 4-0, they're undefeated, then that means they're the better player. It's not like Steve Young has half a Super Bowl to his name. Let's actually pull up how many Super Bowls Steve Young has to Montana. Now, if we look at this graphic right here, that's 3 championships to 4, 7 Pro Bowls to 8. Now, those 7 Pro Bowls are 7 consecutive Pro Bowls. Steve Young has been into the Pro Bowl 7 years in a row. 6 All-Pros, that's 3 first team, 3 second team, to Joe Montana's 3 first team and 2 second teams. They both won the MVP twice, both won Offensive Player of the Year twice, except Steve Young won the United Press Offensive Player of the Year twice. Joe Montana only won it once. Montana has 3 Super Bowl MVPs. Steve Young only has 1. So it's not like Steve Young has half a championship, Nate. I get what you're saying in terms of, okay, well, you're 4-0. Well, Steve Young's not far from that. He's got 3 to his name. So you look at it and you're like, I could get it if Steve Young's only been there once in a blue moon. But the man did it just about as many times as Joe Montana. So you get into the situation of, okay, well, Joe Montana's probably the better passer. But is he necessarily the better player? And I'm thinking no. Based on everything I've told you, he doesn't beat Young in passing touchdowns for leading the league in passing touchdowns. He doesn't beat Young in leading the league in passer rating. He ties Young in completion percentage leading the league. And he don't beat Young in the best player in football with the Burt Bell Award. So, Nate, you're telling me that because Joe Montana has 1 more Super Bowl than Steve Young, He's the better player.
Better quarterback. Better leader.
I'm not arguing leader, but this is what I am arguing.
Better quarterback.
You take a guy like Joe Montana, who is dubbed the greatest of all time for his era. Let's think about other greatest of all time for just a second. Tom Brady. I'll put Drew Brees up there. I'll put Peyton Manning up there as well. We'll take these three for example. The quarterback after Tom Brady was Mac Jones. Did pretty good his rookie season. Patriots, you see what's happening there. They're drafting 4th overall. The New Orleans Saints, hate to say it. You saw what happened when Brees left. We're drafting in the top 10. The Denver Broncos. I'll say the Broncos because he won a Super Bowl there. The Colts did pretty good with Luck, but he retired. The Denver Broncos, after Manning, didn't do crap at quarterback. Had Drew Lock there for a matter of fact. After they won that Super Bowl, they went to a bottom feeder team. You end up having a top draft pick.
Too. If I'm not mistaken, they had
Brock Osweiler. They did. This is my argument, Nate. There is not a single player. But you could probably argue Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. But in my opinion, there's not a single player who stepped in the shoes of the greatest of all time, who went one-on-one with the great one. Steve Young did not only step in the shoes of Montana, but in my opinion, he raised the bar even higher.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm not finished, Nate. We want to talk about greatest of all time, but we have not talked about yet the greatest receiver of all time in San Francisco 49ers history. How well did these two quarterbacks do for the greatest receiver of all time or vice versa? How well was Jerry Rice under Montana? And how well was Jerry Rice under Steve Young? Now, Jerry Rice, injury seasons permitted because I'm prohibiting Montana's injury year. Jerry Rice has 8 seasons with Young and only 6 seasons with Montana. But, so I didn't skew the numbers. I did the average per season instead of giving you the total. I will still tell you the total. So Jerry Rice, in total yards with Joe Montana, went 7,866 yards. That is 1,311 yards, receiving yards per season under Joe Montana. Under Steve Young, he had 10,498 yards receiving. Now, he had his career yard number with 1,848 under Young. He had his career reception number under Young. He had his career touchdown number with Joe Montana. Now, the average for Young's 8 seasons with Jerry Rice, get this, Nate, is 1,312. That is 1 yard off of his average with Montana. So it's very, very similar in terms of average. But did you get to receptions? Under Montana, he had 446 receptions, and that's only 74 a season. Under Young, he had 753. That's 94 a season. Okay, you get a little better receiving wise with Young. Maybe that's because you don't have as many weapons with Young. So you get a little bit better there in terms of receptions. But then you get the touchdowns. 79 under Montana. That's 6 touchdowns season. Then you get 89 with Young. And that is 11 per season.
You know, I
did not do that right.
You give me the numbers. You give me the
I
numbers.
meant 13, not 6. Excuse me. I don't know why I said 6. 13 per season with Montana. So you get a little bit better with Montana. You have your touchdown career. So, Nate, before I just want to point this out. Offensive player of the year with Montana. Offensive player of the year with Young. You have your best season under Young. You produce more under Young. You can continue with what you were going to say. Who did better with the greatest wide receiver of all time? Young
remember,
or Montana?
the game changed even more when Young came under center. Now we're not taking anything away from Steve Young. I would say that he's the better, or excuse me, that Joe Montana,
Yeah.
Big Game Joe is better than they're both Hall of Fame. Both won multiple championships. You know, that's what this game is predicated. This was about the rings. But when we talk about the actual quarterback position, Steve Young is a better football player than Joe Montana, but a better leader, a better, better leader, better quarterback. Joe Montana has that over Steve Young. Just like right now, a better football player. Lamar Jackson is the best football player in the NFL. But as far as the quarterback position, I'm going to say Patrick Mahomes and even so Joe Burrow are better quarterbacks.
I agree. I'll put Joe. I don't mind that comparison. I'll put Joe Burrow up. I don't mind that at all. But the whole argument before we get into we're going to settle down in just a second. But the whole argument for me is he not only did what was expected of him, but he raised that bar maybe higher than Montana. He at least grabbed it, Nate. He at least grabbed it. But Steve Young, what he did after Montana was something no quarterback has ever done with one of the greatest of all time. And he did it so perfectly that I have to put him above Montana. I just have to. Because you talk about better football players. I get that. He's a better athlete for sure. And I wasn't alive to see the eye test. That's one of the things. But when you dig down the numbers and really look into who did more for their team, Montana won 4. Steve, when he was starting, really only won 1 because 2 of them were Montanas. Who did better with Jerry Rice? I'm going to say Steve Young.
Okay.
So you get into the conversation of, Joe Montana's a better quarterback. Steve Young's a better athlete / football player. I want to leave it up to you. Nate, I know your opinion. Let us know in the comments below.
Let us know
who you thought did better for the 49ers organization. Obviously, 4 Super Bowls is hard to beat. But in terms of everything, let's just not talk about Super Bowls. Based on what Nate and I have discussed today, who takes the cake? Montana or Young?